Good morning. Welcome to Bhagavatam's fourth Canto review. Starting with the backstory is I'm not going to do backstory. We're just going to jump in. People should know backstory. As Sati left, Shiva's followers ran by the thousands to accompany her. It's an interesting point because that means she had her husband's support even when she didn't exactly comply. So that's an important aspect that we could learn about being a husband. As Sati left, Shiva's followers ran by the thousands to accompany her. Catching up, they stopped her and decorated her with garlands and jewelry. They brought her parrot and ball, symbolizing her mastery of wit and recreation, her mirror and lotus, symbolizing her mastery of beauty, and her white umbrella and fan, symbolizing her exalted dignity. So she's going to go out to this big ceremony that her dad is conducting. But her followers don't want her to just go looking ordinary. They want her to look the way she should look when she goes to a gigantic event. So they gave her all the things that symbolize her various excellent qualities. Then, seating her regally atop the king of all bulls, they proceeded towards the ceremony with drums, horns, and flutes, announcing Sati's mastery of the arts. At Daksha's ceremony, all the gods, sages, and scholars had assembled around pots of clay, wood, iron, gold, sacred grass, and hide, surrounding an arena of sacrifice that hummed with the roar of mantra and sacrificial animals. So this is what Vedic ceremonies actually look like. They're generally not small affairs like little magic spells you do in a pot. They are gigantic affairs that require dozens of people, and so all these different types of pots have different things that are held inside them for different purposes, ceremony, etc. All the gods and sages and scholars are there. They are all seated in kind of a circle around the pots: clay, wood, iron, gold, grass, and hide. And then inside the pots is the actual ceremonial area where you have priests doing mantras and then you have animals being sacrificed. When Sati arrived, people used all this hubbub as an excuse and pretended not to notice her because they were afraid of angering the master of ceremonies, Daksha. Only Sati's sisters, aunts, and mother showed her respect, embracing her with delighted faces and greeting her with words choked by tears of love. Sati, however, could not reply to them. She could hardly hear them. They offered her a seat, but she remained standing, shocked to the core at the utter disregard showed by her beloved father. It dawns on me now, I'm not sure if it dawned on me before. If it did, I forgot. It dawns on me now that here is Sati personally realizing what Shiva told her about the way that anger works. If you remember back when Sati was trying to get Shiva to come with her to the ceremony, Shiva said, she said, my father loves me. He's not going to act like a jerk like you think he's going to act because he loves me. And Shiva said, he does love you, but you don't understand how anger works. Anger is temporarily stronger than love. And when it flares up, it's like temporarily Rahu and Ketu can obscure the moon and the sun. They're not brighter or darker or anything than the sun and moon, but temporarily they can blot it out. Same way when anger arises, people do not see the objects of the love, they see the objects of the hate. So he explained this to her, that when you go to his ceremony, he won't even see you. He'll see me. He'll see the person that he hates because you love me. So when he sees you, he won't see you as his daughter who he loves. He'll see you as a person who loves somebody he hates. And now she's experiencing that firsthand. Actually, when she comes here, everyone disrespects her, really. But what she really sees is her father treating her very bad, improperly. The fact that her mother, her aunts, her sisters are treating her well, she can't focus on that. That's the way anger works. Sati, however, couldn't reply to them. She could hardly hear them. They offered her a seat, but she remained standing, shocked to the core at the utter disregard shown by her beloved father. And actually, anger is a derivative of love. People will say that it's the opposite of love, or hate is the opposite of love. There's only love, but then love has derivatives. So anger is the feeling of something being improper to an object of love. If there's an object of love is something that you value, and then something unjust or improper happens to it, something unfair happens to it, that's when the emotion that arises as a result of that is called anger. So it's based on love. You can't really have anger without love. And of course, everybody loves themselves. So anger will certainly arise in relation, and rightly so. So of course, anger will also arise in situations where things are unjust towards you. If Sati didn't love her father, she wouldn't care. Similarly, if Daksha didn't love Sati, he wouldn't care that she loved Shiva. All right? Sati, however, couldn't reply to them, blah, blah. I read that 3 times now. Glancing into the sacrificial arena, she saw no offerings set aside for her husband. That was the straw that broke the camel's back. You may remember back in the first chapter, Daksha cursed Rudra, cursed Shiva. You're not really a god. So people won't. You won't be offered anything in sacrifices. So in his very own sacrifice, he doesn't offer anything to Rudra. And when she sees that, finally she realizes these people, they actually really literally hate us. Rage became obvious on her face. Why rage and not sadness? There's a difference. There's a slight difference between rage, anger, and sadness. Both of them are based on something you love. If you don't have love, you won't have any other emotions. This is why love is so important. But when you have love, then you have all the other emotions. When you love something and then something is taken from it, it produces a feeling of sadness. When you love something and something is done to it wrong, that produces a feeling of anger. So the what we call anubhav, or the result of the emotion of anger, is that you will destroy something, which is causing the threat. But the anubhav of sadness, the result of the sadness, is that you will lament and just want to repair. You'll kind of retreat so that you can heal. Because the feeling of sadness is that something has been extracted or taken away or lost. That's what it's based on. But the feeling of anger is that something is being introduced which shouldn't be introduced. So why does she feel angry and not sad? Because her perception was, this man is offensive. Not that I'm losing something, I've lost something. You could have focused on the fact that I lost my father or something. But what she personally focused on, this is why, depending on the personality, they'll more often feel angry or sad. And generally, men tend to get angry and women tend to get sad because of the reaction tools that we have. The anubhav tools. The male has an anubhav tool, which is better for destroying things. The body has got more upper body strength. So anger will be more effective in a male, whereas sadness will be more effective in a female because she has the tools to heal. So Sati could have seen it differently, but the way she saw it was, this is offensive. These people are aggressive. And the reaction towards that is anger. The powerful goddess looked ready to destroy the world. She's going to destroy it. That's the Anubhav of anger. Under her breath, she murmured furiously, "Cursed be this father," a hater of Shiva, intoxicated with pride for his petty, smoke-stained accomplishments. The retinue of fierce creatures who accompanied her began to growl and show their teeth in eagerness to destroy Daksha, but she ordered them to desist and stepped boldly forward. And this is like the best one of this is the best one of the best dialogues in the whole Bhagavatam. Tash says, does this make love seem kind of fickle, that it can just be overcome by another feeling? It can't be overcome. Is the sun fickle? The sun's not fickle. Is it possible for the sun to be eclipsed? It is possible for the sun to be eclipsed. The sun is hella not fickle. The sun is the most steady thing in the world. Similarly, love is the staibhav. It's the permanent feeling, and all the other emotions are vyabhichari of it, are decorations or permutations of it. Sometimes the focus will be drawn to the permutation more than to the thing. Because, like for example, the ocean. The ocean is a super deep thing with hundreds of leagues of depth beneath it, but what you see more is the waves on the top. So love is also often like that. What you actually see more in a person's behavior are the vyabhichari bhavs and the anubhavs, the expressions or in the temporary resulting emotions. But actually the whole thing is based on this huge depth. All right, so let's see what she tells her dad in front of everybody. "Hear me, father," she shouted. The entire arena collapsed into a sudden deafening silence. Remember, it's a loud Grand Central Station. And then all of a sudden she shouts louder than anybody else. And then everything collapses into a sudden deafening silence as she faced her father and declared, "No one but you could hate a kind and loving person. No one but you could hate someone who hates no one. No one but you could hate the universal soul, the most beloved self of all embodied beings. Look at you," she regaled. "You are the epitome of elaborate pretense. You pretend to be civilized, but in truth you are barbaric. Truly civilized people look for some... because this is his thing. He's so sophisticated, and Shiva is so barbaric. Shiva doesn't wear clothes. Shiva doesn't comb his hair. Blah. Shiva doesn't have a job. Shiva doesn't have a home. This really bothers Daksha, because Daksha is so sophisticated. He has a pot of gold, he has a pot of iron, he has a pot of grass. And he only puts the grass water in the grass pot, and he only puts the iron water in the iron pot." So she says, "You think you're so civilized, but you're really the barbarian. Truly civilized people look for some merit, even in the flaws of fools. But you are just the opposite. You search for the slightest semblance of mistake in truly great people, and then raise a big uproar over it. Ha!" she scoffed. "It's no big surprise that those stupid enough to accept a corpse as their true self would also be stupid enough to look for flaws in those who are truly great." So this sophistication thing is to be very, very focused on the external details of things. It's quite Virgo. Virgo-y. And so that will epitomize itself in a person assuming that the outer layer of their self, the body, is the whole most important thing. Whereas Shiva is just the opposite. He's not sophisticated. He doesn't have an iron pot for iron water. He has a skull and he puts everything in it. What does he care about? The essence of the things, the inner meaning of everything. What does Daksha know about that stuff? Nothing. As her words echoed through the arena, not even the goats dared pray. Unfounded criticism does not bother those who are truly great. But the dust of their feet, she said, raising her hand to her heart, shall graciously annihilate the pride of prosperity that blinds you. And as we talked about the first time we went through this, this is a really important point. The dust of the feet refers to the people who are the followers or the admirers of somebody. When you insult somebody, usually they just insult you back because they're an ordinary person and they react. But if you insult somebody and they don't insult you back, that's really worse. At least when you insult somebody, they insult you back, you just get your karma right away. When you insult somebody and they don't insult you back, watch out. You just dug yourself a grave. Because you just insulted a person who did not deserve to be insulted. And the people who appreciate that person the repercussions for your acting to come through them, therefore it's going to be manifold. Unfounded criticism does not bother those who are truly great, but the dust of their feet, she said, raising her hand to her heart, indicating herself, shall graciously annihilate the pride of prosperity that blinds you. Daksha trembled in anger, unable to look directly at her as she continued. Everyone knows that Shiva's flawless guidance is pure. Everyone knows that flaws and impurities flee from anyone who even speaks the mere syllables Shiva. You alone don't understand this. You alone hate him. Why, she taunted? Because you are his exact opposite. He is a great soul, so what does that make you? That is a good insult, actually. Great souls keep their minds at his feet, seeking the intoxicating honey nectar of spiritual bliss, like honeybees hovering around lotus flowers. Ordinary people seek his blessings for their ordinary hopes and dreams because they know him to be everyone's benefactor. Is your mind at his feet? Do you seek his blessings? No. You are neither a great soul nor an ordinary person. You are in a class by yourself. You alone hate him. Everyone takes upon their heads whatever falls from his feet. Did I misspell there? Let's try. I before you except after C. No. English is great. Everyone takes upon their heads whatever falls from his feet because they know his greatness. Everyone except you. You alone see him as a madman amongst madmen, decorating himself with human skulls, disheveled mats of hair, and the ashes of the dead. I cannot understand how you see him this way. No one can understand it. Not even the wisest sage in existence, Brahma. Any questions? Actually sounds like my dad. Sorry to hear that. Daksha then rose from his seat, livid with fury. He shouted at his youngest daughter, "You claim that only the wicked see faults in others, yet here you stand, shouting about the faults you find in me. Your father, the Prajapati, worshipped by everyone, so who is wicked? This is always what happens. When you criticize someone, they criticize you for being critical." Undaunted, Sati replied confidently. Sati is just so great. You have to admit, Sati is the ideal heroine. Her character is so strong in the feminine way, which is unafraid to actually explode also, but it has this like Mars and Capricorn thing to it. She has this once she decides something, it stays. So she will not relent. Undaunted, Sati replied confidently, "You think I am being too harsh? Ha! I am being too meek." It is, and the intelligence that she has, the intellect that she has, she just constantly keeps quoting from the Vedas and the Niti. She just constantly keeps quoting laws and morality. It's just like smacking her father. So every argument, just smacking it down. It is said, if the illiterate insult the truly great, cut out their tongue or kill them. You, an illiterate fool, insult Shiva, a truly great being, so I should cut out your tongue or lop off your head. But because you are my father, all I can do is yell. My behavior is not too harsh, it is too meek, and that is not an insult to you, it is an insult to my husband. Daksha stood speechless, and Sati continued. The dictum continues. If you cannot silence the insult, cover your ears and flee. How can I flee? You are my father. I can never outrun my wretched connection to you. My very body is inherently connected to you. The dictum concludes, if you can neither silence the insult nor flee from it, kill yourself. Indeed, this is my only option. As the saying goes, if poison is inside you, vomit immediately. Daksha's heart suddenly sank. For the first time, he realized the dire result of his self-important hatred. Yet his pride remained strong and paralyzed him from showing any regret. Seeing this, Sati spoke with terrifying conclusive gravity. I shall now speak my final words. May they correct your grave mistake. So she just announced that she's going to kill herself. And then she confirms that he's not willing to do anything to stop it. And then she says, okay, I'm going to speak my final thing. This is for your sake. To correct your mistake. I shall explain why you hate Shiva. It is because you are so different from him, and therefore cannot intuit his behavior. It is said, the ways of the enlightened are different from the ways of the ordinary. He is enlightened, you are ordinary. When you slander him for not observing the ordinary rules and conventions you follow, you look like a preschooler criticizing an adult for not practicing the alphabet. I shall also explain what makes you so different from him. You lack internal happiness and are therefore obsessed with external things. Shiva is just the opposite. He is so engrossed in internal happiness that he hardly even experiences external things. So I rightly describe him as enlightened and you as ordinary. Being so very ordinary, when confronted with something that baffles you, you criticize it. For example, you slander him for not following the social rules in the Veda. Apparently you have not given much thought to the famous statement, great sages who delight within do not have any interest in the externals of the Veda. Upon hearing the word Veda, Daksha drew a breath to pontificate. But Sati silenced him immediately. Here comes your next mistake, she said. Your shallow comprehension of the Veda can see only rituals and ceremonies for materialistic goals. You seem utterly blind to the fact that the Vedas describe a path away from external material things too. The Veda paves two paths, and the followers of those paths live quite differently from one another. A person on the path of accumulation cannot follow the conventions of the path of enlightenment. Nor do great sages on the path of enlightenment follow the Vedic rules that apply to common materialistic people. Oblivious to this, you criticize them for not following your path and claim that they do not uphold the Veda. Shiva is beyond both paths, so what rules or customs can bind him? Daksha fell back into his chair, looking away in disbelief. Sati concluded her denunciation. You've claimed that you pity me, Father, but that is just more of your ignorance. Why should you pity me? Yes, it is true that my husband and I do not have external wealth like you, but it is not true that we are poor. Our wealth is internal and flawless. We have no need for your toys of opulence. We are avadhut. We certainly do not care in the least about filling our bellies with sacrificial food from a blood-stained arena of smoke-covered rituals. Enough, enough. I can take no more of life as the daughter of a wretched and wicked lump of flesh who casts audacious slander upon the great soul Shiva, the blessed epitome of all virtue, my husband. Being your daughter is nothing but an embarrassment. When my husband calls me Dakshayani, I remember you, and my happy smile instantly falls into an abyss of depression. Enough. Now taste the bitter fruit of your ignorance. Watch with your own two eyes as your own daughter intentionally gives up the corpse that you fathered. Any questions? This is good stuff. I'm not sure what Sati's birth chart is. Got a little bit more. You guys can ask questions about why she's saying what she's saying, or what she means, or how, etc. That would be fine. So there's one more chapter to do today, and this one is called Suicide of Gods. She who annihilates her enemies then wrapped herself with a saffron cloth, sanctified herself with water, and sat silently on the ground in the northern quarter of Daksha's sacrificial arena. There she closed her eyes and set her vision entirely upon the mystic path. After establishing firm sitting posture, she equalized. I just have to speak at this point about how people cannot. I'm going to actually, because this is an astrological crowd, I'm going to relate this to the adoption of a sidereal zodiac in India. A lot of people's emotional reaction to the proposition that the zodiac, even in India, is supposed to be tropical. A lot of people's emotional reaction is it can't be. Sanjay Rath and K.N. Rao and B.V. Raman and all these people did it sidereal. And they can't be wrong. They're Indians, you're an Italian. Like, what even gives you the audacity? So, actually, India is full of human beings. Not people from another planet. And human beings act like human beings. Whether they're from India or America, whether they're black or white or something in between. What human beings do is make mistakes. And what human beings do is justify the mistakes. So why am I bringing this up now? Because Sati, if you know the name of this lady, Sati, and you know anything about India, you also know something weird about Sati. Sati is some weird custom that if your husband dies, you should kill yourself. And supposedly, it's called Sati. It's named after this incident. What in the world does it have to do with this incident? Nothing. It's some creepy development of some patriarchal, lazy-ass culture that doesn't want to take care of people. And they put the stamp of Sati on it to make it sound like you better do it, otherwise you're not good. You're not Vedic. These things happen. People say they couldn't have made a mistake. Bro, they make mistakes all the time. Everybody makes mistakes all the time. How can you be so amazed that there was a mistake? Are you serious? The caste system is a gigantic, huge, humongous mistake that everybody accepted for hundreds of years. Sati, the Sati convention, is a huge, barbaric, ridiculous mistake that everybody accepted for hundreds of years. The sidereal zodiac is a mistake that everybody has accepted for hundreds of years. It's not impossible for people to make mistakes just because they're Indian. This event here with Sati has nothing to do with a wife killing herself when her husband dies. The husband is alive. He's not dead. Let's return to the story. She who annihilates her enemies then wrapped herself with a saffron cloth, sanctified herself with water, also the way that it's done. If you could do this with your yoga, then you probably have the state of mind to do it properly, to kill yourself properly. Properly means with any action with the wrong motive is bad. Any action with the right motive and conception is good. If you are a yogini who can do this, then you probably have the right conception even behind an action such as suicide. So let's see it happen like this. Instead of somebody pushing you into a fire, then call it Sati. She who annihilates her enemies then wrapped herself with a saffron cloth, sanctified herself with water, and sat silently on the ground in the northern quarter of Daksha's sacrificial arena. There she closed her eyes and set her vision entirely on the mystic path. After establishing firm sitting posture, she equalized her inhalations and exhalations to accumulate energy in her navel. Then that faultless woman gradually and carefully raised that serpentine energy into her heart, her throat, and finally between her eyebrows, where she fixed it firmly. Her wondrous body was beloved to Shiva and always had a place on the lap of that great being whom saints adore, whom great saints adore, and who is everyone's guru. But she was disgusted with it, because it was so closely connected to her father Daksha. To rid herself of it, she impelled the friction of her life airs to ignite a fire within it. Then, in a single lightning flash instant, the fire suddenly and miraculously blazed forth and consumed her body entirely, as her carefree, happy mind enwrapped itself in the intoxicating sweetness of her husband's lotus-like feet. She's gone. She just collapses. Her body collapses into ash as a result of her being able to manipulate the breath within her body. The earth and sky roared with shock. It's not some conventional fire that burned her. The earth and sky roared with shock. People pointed in disgust at Daksha and cried. So finally, all these regular people who were previously like, oh no, Sati's here, let's look away because Daksha is going to get mad. I don't want to be the one who notices Sati. Now all of a sudden they're like, oh my God, this is now beyond. We cannot look away from this. So they point at Daksha and they cry, alas, Sati, the beloved goddess of the supreme God, has ended her life because of the anger he provoked. Any ordinary father cares for his ordinary daughter, but this wretch, who claims to be the Prajapati, the All-Father, would not show an ounce of concern for his glorious, respectful, and respectable daughter. He claims to be a philosophical Brahmana, but now it is obvious that he is just a cruel, hard-hearted man. He loved his disgusting hatred of glorious Shiva more than he loved his own daughter, and so did nothing to dissuade her as she prepared to commit suicide. The whole world now knows that he is the most worthless, infamous man. The death of Sati is created by worthless, infamous, terrible things. Why do you want to recreate it? Indian social custom from the 15th, 16th, 17th century. Infuriated, Shiva's followers drew their weapons and rushed forward to kill Daksha. Shiva's followers are seriously dangerous monsters. As soon as he saw them begin, powerful Brigu poured oil into the southern sacrificial fire and incanted mantras from the Yajurveda that destroy those who try to destroy a sacrifice. Om Ahapattam Raksha. Thousands of powerful deities arose from the fire. The Ribhu, who possess the indefatigable vigor of Soma as a result of their self-disciplines. With blazing weapons, they repelled the attack. Shiva's friends tried sorcery and stealth, but the Ribhu shined with magical power and scattered them in all directions. And that's the end of the chapter. That's the end of what I reviewed for this week. So, any questions about what's going on here? Tash, how does this translate into modern relationships? It translates pretty well. People still act like this. It's just that you're dealing with gods and goddesses. But basically, you always have the sophisticated person who hates the unsophisticated person because they can't comprehend. And you always have the issue of your anger, letting your anger steal the focus away from the love. You have the anger of being paralyzed by pride and refusing to say sorry, even when after you realize you're wrong. These are all the themes, same themes. You have the ideal of speaking up. Sati was a quiet little mousy girl. Sati became ferocious. This is being upheld as this is the goddess does this. This is what you should do. When the aggression or the disrespect is present, you should speak. So all these things are relevant to the modern. Ayush is doing something which... Okay, he says, you've been told anger should be directed and targeted by some wise person. But she's acting on her own. She's wise. What are you talking about? You think everybody needs somebody else to stand over their shoulder and tell them what to do? This is called the Guru Overdependence Complex. GODC. These psychologists have identified this. They told me about this. OGD. Instead of OCD, it's OGD. No. GOD. Guru Overdependence Complex. GODC. You people just have to realize that nobody else is responsible for your decisions. You're responsible for your decisions. Stop asking somebody else to live your life. Make your own decisions. Guru teaches you information from the Shastra. You use that information to make your decisions. You don't need this person to make your decisions for you. Uh-oh. I got frozen in a moment. Let's see what happens when we refresh this. Let's just go here, actually. Reconnect. Refresh. No, it's not going to reconnect. Look at that. We got a serious technical problem. Right in the middle of my rabid rampant thingamajig. Un momento. This is not easy now. I wonder what made that happen. Yeah, we're back. We're live. All right, so that saved you from my wrath. Probably she has Moon and Mula. Typo alert, Davina. Where did you see it? Cured Grin wants to know what becomes of the tarnished, sophisticated one who became a Daksha in that life and the next. Any mention of this reincarnation of it is, yeah, just stick around. It's going to be, that's what the next 2 chapters are about. Okay. Fiend? Where? Like at what point, Davana? Let's go back and see. Oh, let's change to where you can see it too. Uno momento. There it is. It's still frozen in time. But now it is animated. Fiend, someplace on here. Let me search Fiend. She was fiends. It should be fiends. She was fiends. Not friends. They're fiends. They're monsters. But the reboot shine with magical power and scattered them in all directions. This would be good. You know, if it was Hollywood, then they would take this one paragraph and make it like 20 minutes of the movie. Question. Shouldn't followers aspire to act in the same way as their gurus does? So if a great... Yes. Do you think that she's not acting in the same way that her guru would? Then wait till you see the next chapter how her guru is going to act. Did I misspell fiend? Oh, okay. Shouldn't followers aspire to act in the same way as their gurus done? So if a great person is unaffected by insults, shouldn't their devotees also aspire to be unaffected instead of angry? No, she actually said it very nicely. She said, here, let me find it for you. And me, since I can't remember it directly. Unfounded criticism does not bother those who are truly great, but the dust of their feet shall graciously annihilate the pride of prosperity that blinds you. So, this is actually interesting and deep. You have to understand somebody deeply. If you insult person B, but person B is really not deserving the insult, if person B is really elevated, they'll feel sorry for you. The most common person will hate you for insulting them, and then they'll insult you back and get into a fight. A little bit better, the person will think, what a jerk, but who cares? But a really well-developed person will feel sorry for you that you have this negative, like, you see things the wrong way. But they can't really correct you because you're antagonistic to them. So they remain silent. This is an important principle in human behavior, is that you shouldn't try to instruct or benefit an enemy because you'll waste your breath. You should wait for a question to be asked before you give the answer, in other words. So you should wait for somebody's ear to be turned towards you before you speak to it. When their back is turned towards you, you shouldn't try to speak to their ear. So if you insult person B and person B is super great, they're going to want to help you not have that misconception about life, but they can't. The people who know that person and love that person will want to help them, and they'll be in a position to help. So they'll punish. Punishment is not violence. There's 2 different things. Violence is violence, punishment is punishment. Violence is the motivation is to hurt and cause pain and sadness. That's violence. Punishment is the motivation is to correct. So the followers of a great person punishing the offender of the great person are actually following the will of the great person. But because the person themselves cannot do it, they take up the role. Cannot do it, or sometimes it doesn't have the spirit for it, because punishment is a pretty macho thing. So when people get more elevated, they lose those kind of chemicals, and they don't really have chutzpah for doing it. And then in that way, people who are less developed, the followers, can be of some service. So hopefully that explains. Thank you, Rebecca. That was a nice question, Auspicious. Thank you for the question. I feel like the Osho followers had guru overdependence. Most people have guru overdependence, not just of a particular guru, but even of a guru that's quite genuine. There will be the majority of the people that follow the person will have guru overdependence. GODC or GODS, gods. Let's call it GODS, gods, guru overdependence syndrome. I have to contact some of my psychology friends to get this written up into a nice format. Bardo, the weakest point of the most enlightened ones is their attachment and love to somebody. No. What makes you say that, Bardo? I want to know why you would say something so completely opposite of what we're teaching. What makes you say that? I think you're on such a completely different planet. I love you, but you're on such a different planet from where we're speaking from. But I want to know. I want to try to get to the bottom of this. Why would you say that the weakest point of the most enlightened ones is their attachment or love to somebody? What about this made you say that? Anything else? So you guys like the pictures, right? This is my friend Kaveri. She did these. She also did a couple for Dhruva that perhaps you haven't seen yet. This is my favorite one. This one I worked the most with her on this one. Can you see it? You can see it, right? It's on the screen. Yeah. What else? This is another one. It's pretty nice. Oh, actually, my favorite. Actually, that Sati one is my favorite. My favorite, though, is not in the pages of the book, but it's the cover of the book. It's the picture of Daksha. She did a great picture of Daksha. All right. You have any reply to that, Bardo? Anyway, just think about it. Okay. I shall sign off now. Thank you very much.